Hello guys, we're going to continue our lessons with the second part to this. So on page 3 you should have mechanical layers labeled on that page, and we're going to continue with the notes that Ms. Rios had you take yesterday or in the previous lesson on the compositional layers. The layers of the earth are also divided into mechanical layers. So it's a little more detailed, and it includes other things that we're going to teach you about today. The inside of the earth is divided into layers based on their physical properties as well. So we're going to say the inside of the earth is divided into layers based on physical properties as well. Yesterday, or in the previous lesson, Ms. Rios talked about the way that the layers are divided based on what they're made of, their chemical composition. This time we're going to talk about the layers according to their physical properties, which is something different. This separates them in a different way based on their temperature, their density, as well as their viscosity. Okay? And viscosity is, when you think of viscosity, it's the fluidity of the layer. It's the way that it flows. When I think of viscosity, I think of molasses or real thick maple syrup that you put on your pancakes. So viscosity is the fluidity of the layer that we're talking about at the time. So we're going to go from the outside inward, and so we're going to start with the outer part. The lithosphere is the crust and the upper portion of the mantle. So we're going to go ahead and write right here, lithosphere. Lithosphere. And the lithosphere is actually solid. And it's divided, the lithosphere includes the crust and the uppermost portion of the mantle. It's solid, it's rigid, and it's divided into tectonic plates. Okay, so it's divided into tectonic plates. It's divided into pieces. We're going to write pieces called tectonic plates. Okay, so when we do this, when we draw it on our model down here or on our picture, because it includes the crust and the upper part of the mantle, it's going to be a little thicker. If you remember right here, the brown part is the crust that you drew yesterday. But when you're talking about the lithosphere, you're talking about it being a little thicker. So we're going to go down here and we're going to make it a little bit thicker. And we're going to go ahead and label it lithosphere. We're going to go on down and draw it all the way down. And we're going to label it lithosphere. Okay, we're going to actually color it orange. All right, so I'm going to color it orange. So lithosphere on this side is a little bit thicker than the crust that you colored on the left. It's going to be colored orange because it involves it involves the crust that we talked about yesterday, as well as the upper part of the mantle. So again, the lithosphere is a solid, it's rigid, and it's divided into pieces called tectonic plates. Next layer that we're going to talk about is the asthenosphere. The asthenosphere lies directly below the lithosphere. It's actually right below. So let's go ahead and write asthenosphere. I'll tell you a little bit about it. Asthenosphere. It flows not real easily, but the asthenosphere is directly below the lithosphere, but it doesn't extend very deep into the upper mantle. It also is solid, but it's more plastic, and it flows kind of like silly putty. So it flows more easily, but is not a liquid. So when you think about silly putty, or if you think about the baggie that we showed you and we talked about the plasticity, you felt of kind of like oobleck. It's that kind of consistency, or the consistency of silly putty. So we're going to go ahead and put in parentheses silly putty, so that you have something to picture in your mind when you're thinking of the asthenosphere. All right, so the asthenosphere, again, is a solid, but it's not a liquid. It's more fluid than a solid, but it's not completely liquid. It's more like silly putty. So when we draw the asthenosphere, when we talk about the asthenosphere, I told you that it doesn't extend very deep into the upper mantle. So we're going to make it about, let's see, let me move this up a little bit. We're going to make it about this thick because, like I said, it doesn't extend very far up into the upper mantle. So we're going to make this the asthenosphere. And we're going to go ahead and label asthenosphere. And we're going to go ahead and color it blue. So if you would, go ahead and get your colored pencil, and we're going to color it blue. Okay. So again, the asthenosphere extends into more of the mantle, but the upper part of the mantle, it's more like silly putty in consistency, so it flows more easily, but it's not a solid, it's not a liquid. All right. So when we talk about the asthenosphere, it's below the lithosphere. It includes the upper part of the mantle, but it doesn't go completely down into the mantle. So here we go. We're going to talk about the mesosphere now. So we're going to go ahead and go down. Now, I was going to go back and tell you a little bit more about the asthenosphere, or the lithosphere. Well, I'll tell you later. I'm sorry. I don't want to mess you up. Let's go on and talk about the mesosphere. So the mesosphere is even further down. It is solid, and it's more rigid than the asthenosphere. It actually, let's see, it is solid and more rigid than the asthenosphere. Okay, and the mesosphere is thicker. It's like I said, it's solid and more rigid. It's made of more metals than, but it is, again, more solid. So let's go ahead and draw that layer. I'm going to go ahead and go ahead and draw it like right here. Let's do this. Let's move it up a little bit. I want to make sure that it gets drawn well. I'm picky when it comes to my notes, so I want it to look good. Okay, so this is going to be the mesosphere. We're going to go ahead and color it purple. All right, we're going to make it purple. And the mesosphere, again, is solid. It's the lower part of the mantle. The mesosphere is. It's more solid. It's the lower part of the mantle. It's more rigid than the asthenosphere. Then we've got the outer core. Outer core is the only layer that is truly liquid. Okay, it's the only layer that's truly liquid is the outer core. And when we're talking about the outer core, that's the one that most of y'all are familiar with when we're talking about outer inner core. You know, when y'all named those the other day when we were talking, that's the ones that you had the easiest time with because these are the ones that you're most familiar with. The outer core, again, is only the only layer that's truly liquid, so it flows very easily, very, very hot, because it's so close to the center of the Earth. And then we've got the inner core. So because we labeled lithosphere right here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go down here and we're going to label this inner core. Inner core. It is solid. It is hotter than the sun. That is how incredibly hot the inner core is. Hotter than the sun. But it is a solid. So let's go ahead and label this inner core. And we're going to go ahead and shade it gray. You can use your pencil, or you can use a black colored pencil. However, it's got to be light enough that you can still see the wording. Okay, so there we go. We've got the mechanical layers labeled of the Earth. And so now you know the chemical composition of the layers of the Earth and the mechanical layers that are divided into their physical properties. So we've got the, again, just as a review, we've got the temperature, we've got the density, we've got the viscosity in our descriptions, and then we color-coded right here. In the lithosphere, just to review, in the lithosphere, it's a solid. It's not near as hot. It's very cool, in fact, because this is the part that we walk on. Actually, the lithosphere is It's the top part, it's the crust, but it also includes the upper part, a very small part of the upper mantle. This is the part that's divided into the tectonic plates. Those are pieces of crust that are divided into pieces that move. They actually move on the asthenosphere, which is more easily flows. However, the asthenosphere includes the upper part of the mantle. It's all in the mantle. And the asthenosphere is not liquid, but it's not solid. It's what we consider something like silly putty, which is, it flows easily, but it isn't completely liquid. Then we move into the mesosphere, which as you get further into the center of the earth, you're getting hotter and hotter. Now, the density of the mesosphere is different than the asthenosphere in that the mesosphere is solid. So you have a solid, you have kind of a mix between a solid and a liquid in viscosity. Then you've got the viscosity of this being a solid. This doesn't flow. It's more rigid than the asthenosphere. So the mesosphere is pretty thick. It is in a solid form, so it is hot though. The outer core is the only layer that's actually truly a liquid because it's getting closer to the center of the earth as well. And then we finally have the inner core, which is a solid, and it is actually hotter than the sun. So if you have any questions, make sure that you ask us when you're in the teacher station, and I hope you got all that. If you need anything, let me know.